Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts, Will and Allison and Samantha. And today we're going to talk about a stream of consciousness, but not just any stream of consciousness. We're going to talk about the Galactics again. Because I tell you, we do this periodically, right? And you know, we've written the origin story. That's one of the things that we love to do is talk about Galactics. We don't typically dedicate a whole show. However, it's been so interesting, particularly towards the end of 2024, moving into 2025, because they really want to be in relationship with us. And we keep hearing that disclosure is going to happen within. So it's going to be a personal experience. It's not going to be your government saying, yeah, they're here, whatever. We're going to know it. We're either going to see them in meditation, in our dream state. We're going to do the CE5 protocol that we've talked about before, where they show up in ships in physicality and you're going to see them in your physical world. However it is that you're destined to see them, more and more people are getting pinged by them to come into relationship with them, to communicate or whatever. It's been fascinating.
Can I ask you about, did y'all pay attention to any of the government inquiries that just took place?
I did not.
Recently?
No.
I know. See, none of us.
I didn't take a deep dive into it.
It's meaningless to me.
Well, but I thought, I couldn't recall if they said, no, there's nothing here.
No, the little bits, they didn't come out and say, yes, there are aliens. Okay.
So they pretty much said the same thing they've always said.
But they did allude to that there are things that they definitely cannot explain that, and I think even to the point where, and I may be misreading into this, but that there are, is it craft? Yeah, craft that are not of human origin.
Okay. So we've gotten that far.
And I think these were the last hearings were back in November.
Yeah.
Yes.
November 2024, right?
Yes.
That we're talking about?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's important that we're having those conversations and that the government is at least putting that out there so people can start to think about it.
Well, I think it's more for, it's part of that whole look at the everyday Joe that, we get it. We've talked to him, that kind of thing. I mean, we understand it from a different place, but like the average Joe that just is, he's got his 9-to-5 job or his family and stuff. And he's like, there's UFOs, but does he really believe, that kind of thing? And then he listens to that and goes, oh, well, maybe there is, that kind of thing. It's
people are taking it seriously in the government. Maybe I should too.
But what's funny is, and I've seen quite a few memes and quite a few little shorts on it where, that people are saying that, all this information is coming out and they're like, oh, okay, well, I want this on my Starbucks coffee. And, it's like it doesn't even faze them.
They got to memify everything.
Right, of course.
Well, it's also because there's so much coming at us all at once that we're just trying to get a grip on our own lives. And when you're faced with some overwhelming evidence of something else, it's like, I just can't. I can't go there right now because I'm just trying to hold it together and work my job and do whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the people you're kind of talking about, we talk about a triangle, these three aspects of sort of the greater metaphysical community. You have the UFO disclosure people. You have the truther people. I don't want to say conspiracy theorists.
You just said it, by the way.
Okay, nobody heard that, right?
I'm not really sure why she's whispering.
Why is that such a bad word? We should not have to whisper that word.
I think it's a fine word, but I don't know if that's one of the algorithm words
No,
they're
it's
looking
not
for. Anyway, you have those truther type of people, and then you have the metaphysical spiritual people who understand the spiritual aspect of ETs and also understand the spiritual aspect of the truther movement, right? And I think we kind of envelop that understanding of all three of those points. But what's so interesting, and the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because random people now, like I'm talking random, normal, like your word, muggle people, are coming up with galactic stuff, or they're buying the origin story, or they're asking for a galactic session, and they're not necessarily into all of this, but all of a sudden they're getting a ping. Hey, that's the book I need. Like we just met, somebody was just introduced to us, and we have 4 books of our own that they could pick up, and also the Ancestors Within, which makes a 5th. I'm just one of those authors. But anyway, so she goes to our website and she looks at all of our book selections. And which one did she buy? The origin story. I'm like, what? Like she's and she's like a normal kind of just random person, right? I thought most people kind of ease in with the animals, the pet book or something, something like that. But they're going straight to the origin story. They don't fling
themselves off the cliff right into the origin story. Yeah.
So then,
but it's a totally different topic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not out there anymore, is my point. And so then there was another situation where we had.
No, it's out there. It's just not way out there.
Okay. It's not as way out there as it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's becoming more normalized.
It's the middle seat of the 1970 station wagon. It's not the way back seat. It's the middle seat. So
we had one of those. We had one of those station wagons. It was Oldsmobile. Where the back seat faced in the back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So basically, you could see the rear end collision coming.
Yes, and breathe in all the exhaust fumes because your parents
and the cigarette smoke and all
they wouldn't run the AC.
And the cigarette smoke. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Oh my God, that was so much fun. I remember driving that car
back
home,
down memory
my brother
lane
and I.
right there. Yeah.
So excited. But anyway, so we ran across this other woman and we kind of gelled, and we were going to do a pet session for her, right? Well, we had to reschedule because I got hung up at work. And when I went to go reschedule with her, she goes, you know what? I think I have a good relationship with my pet. I'd really rather have a 30-minute galactic channeling. I'm like,
out of nowhere.
What?
Out of nowhere.
Because by no indication would I have guessed that she was into the galactics at all.
Not at all.
Anyway, just so many of these cases are coming up where these random people are wanting to connect with galactics. And then you had an interesting situation with another person, didn't you?
Yep.
About in the bedroom showing up like.
Yeah. So, I may get some of this not totally correct, but from what I recall, because I was just in shock, I was like, oh my God, this is coming from everywhere now. But he was saying, like, I think he didn't use the word lucid dream state, but like, in that twilight kind of sleep, which to me is that, but, that I think it's like in his mind's eye, he opened his eyes and all of a sudden he's looking at this, galactic being looking right back at him. And the galactic being apparently was situated between, I think, 2 like monitors, and there's space in between. And so here he is, his face just showing right in between, looking at the galactic being, and the galactic being was suddenly shocked because he's like, you're not supposed to see me. And he's like, but I am seeing you. Like he's a very laid back dude. He was not in shock. And he was just like, but I am seeing you. And it's like, but you're not, go back to sleep. And he's like, but I'm here now, and he said they did have a conversation, but it's like the being was monitoring, seeing how, and it's nothing, nefarious or anything like that. The way that he was saying was like, it was just, they're just checking on what's going on, where in the different quadrants or whatever. Cause, think of benevolent beings looking over us, and we are a part of, I don't want to say their experiment. That's not it, because it's a part of, we're a part of the whole, right?
Yeah.
It's
the
like,
whole, yes.
So it's not like we are these, whatever, we are a part of them coming into this experience to experience and be able to hold this space so that more can come in, so anyway, so, they're just checking in on everybody, seeing what's going on. And he said it was just like quite a eye opener. Like,
I bet it is. And that reminds me, well, first of all, humans, I wanted to speak to what you were talking about. Humans are a part of the galactic family. The galactics know that. We don't know that because there's a veil. When we come in, we're not supposed to know all of that. Some of us end up knowing that or awaken into that understanding. But the galactics know that because they're higher vibrationally and they understand where we sit with that.
That's important to know.
I remember, if you guys wanted to research, I don't know if this was a year ago or more, that Miami incident.
In the shopping
at the
mall.
mall.
Yes. And that where people were seeing these tall kind of, I don't know if they were scary, but if you've never seen a galactic, it could be scary, right?
Yeah.
These tall beings And I don't remember if this came through in channeling or where this was, but it was that they exist around us all the time. And what's happening is our vibration as a human is raising, even if we're not awake and aware yet, your vibration, everybody on the planet is going through ascension.
Yeah.
Whether you are into this kind of stuff or not, you're all moving up. And so as your vibration raises, you're going to start, and we've talked about this, seeing things. You might see ghosts or apparitions, or you might start hearing communication from your loved ones or whatever. It's going to start happening to you, whether you're prepared for it or not. That's why we're trying to prepare people. And so these people at the mall, some of them obviously had reached this vibrational aspect such that they could see who was with them, and it was a galactic.
Yeah.
And so then they're freaking out, and the galactics are like, whoa, wait a minute, you weren't supposed to see
this is not
us.
supposed to be happening.
You're not supposed to be here.
Right.
The disclosure you said is going to be from within, right?
Individually, yeah.
Okay, and what do you mean by that when you say that, within?
So it's going to be an individual experience. It's not going to be somebody outside saying, yes, they exist. It's going to be you having your own personal experience. And this is the point of this episode, is to tell you that people are having their own experience, whether that is your vibration raising enough that you see them walking around, or you see an overlay on people, because that will happen too. You can look at their face and all of a sudden you might see a flash of a lion being or something like that. Or whether you see them in the lucid dreaming state or that hypnagogic state when you're about to fall asleep or you're about to come out of sleep. Or if you go into a meditative practice and you attempt to connect with them, you can connect with them that way. Or some of us, I haven't been privy to this, but some, at least not in a huge sense, where you see them in the sky. Or you see an undeniable craft in the sky. Or have your own UFO experience. Yeah. And if you haven't heard that episode, if you're coming in late, you got to go listen to that one. That was a good one.
Well, I was just thinking about, when we were doing the meditation group that we had going on, and I remember we were all at our separate homes. It wasn't when we were all gathered together, and I remember seeing, and I'd never seen something like this before, but I remember. Realizing there was a mantis being before me, and mantis, right? As we call it. And he was just talking to me, and it was definitely like a masculine. I felt more masculine than feminine, and he was saying that they're going to be appearing, and that's when they explained about the overlay to me, that we would have that energetic overlay, and I was like, okay. And he goes, because, you would freak out, like if I just suddenly appeared. And I'm like, no, I've been getting into this, and I'm totally, bring it on. I'm totally ready. Right. And then he just appeared in front of me in my mind's eye, and a shock went through my body. And he said, yeah, see, you're not ready. It was like the point was made. Yeah. And he said, it was like, literally, he's just kind of going like, so just relax. You're going to see us as an overlay. It's going to be like, you'll meet someone and you'll have this knowing. You might see them, you'll definitely have this knowing, and it'll just be accepted because you're not just this human. You might be from somewhere too. Right. Like everyone's going to have these different overlays.
Kind of like a blended mirage, with
Tatooine. What is it? Or one of the Star Wars things where you walk into the bar and everyone's like, you're going to realize it's not that the human is special. Right. It's that there's all these different beings walking around us with this look of being, so they're literally no different. They're not going to suddenly act different. It's
right. Yep.
You've alluded to that before, the original Star Wars show.
Yeah.
The very first
Star Wars. Yeah. When the
70s or something.
When they go into the cantina and all the beings are sitting. Yep, exactly.
That's legit what it is. There's anything you can imagine.
Where I see that taking place first is as you walk into Walmart. That's where you're going to see it.
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
Oh, yes. Totally.
The music will change on the speakers, and all of a sudden you'll just, oh my God, it's real. And
I think so, because I think that's, I don't think everyone will be able to see it, but I think people who are in that elevated space, they're going to see it and recognize how many.
That's a good point.
And it could be, kind of like Men in Black, where, certain businesses are set up as fronts for, intergalactic
There's
exchange.
a reason why that came up.
Walmart. Walmart's like this, there's certain areas in Walmart that they come and go from.
That's funny.
And that's why there's so many Walmarts stationed all over the country.
Exactly.
Oh my God, we got to write this script. But the thing is, and I firmly do feel this, that it's not, from everything you all have said and what other people have said, nexus of truth and all, that they're not going to suddenly, like the veil drops and we all go, holy shit.
No.
That it's, as you're moving into that space, you're going to start. So it's going to be, some people are going to recognize it, but it's not like you're going to walk into a Walmart and suddenly, like, the average person who's not quite open to this stuff and, whatever is going to just go, oh my God, suddenly where am I?
That average person walks into Walmart and everyone else is aliens in there. And everybody stops and looks at the human. Like, what are you doing in here? That kind of, but no,
and that's us going with that fear-based thing again of we're defenseless, we're small, we're tiny.
We got to look at it like tempering. I mean, you when you're working with metal or working with glass or anything else, you have to temper it over a period of time so it doesn't fracture, so it doesn't, fall apart or whatever. So it's the same thing. If we were to just see everything that we could see around us, our mind would just blow up.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that goes back to, the concept of clear communication that I've been downloading and hearing other people talk about now too, where, because I thought, okay, we're going to go to this space where we can read each other's thoughts. And they were like, no. That we will start off with understanding one's intent.
Right.
So we could still have our secrets because we need to have, like we're still human. But then if somebody says, yeah, I want to do this and not this, but you get that feeling of, why are they saying that? That doesn't feel right.
Because the energy doesn't match the words.
Yeah.
You're going to sense the
so
energy.
It'll be that first. So it's not like, and so that's the same, relationship to the whole galactic presence, is that it's not like we're going to throw this out there and leave you guys to figure it out. Because the whole point has been to ease us into this ascension process. So,
which is why they said they're not just going to show up in downtown New York City or something like that, because we're not ready for it, and that's just going to cause more chaos, and that's not their goal. They're here to support us. They're out there supporting us.
This is for their benefit as much our benefit.
Right.
This whole experience on Earth.
They want to welcome us into the galactic family, but they want it to be done correctly, and they know that they've done this before. They're not. They're not
their
newbies.
protocols.
Yeah.
But that is interesting when you go back to the thing that happened at the shopping mall, because it's kind of like, they're trying to gauge, how much are we being aware of, how much are they allowing us to see?
Yeah.
And then, there's going to be a few mistakes. There's going to be some hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. The idea of them walking around, just imagine you're in a room and you're invisible, and all of a sudden somebody can see you. You're like, oh crap, it's like you're naked.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about that. Oh God, what is the name of the show of the alien in the town in Alaska?
Yeah, what is
it's the doctor. Resident Alien. And it's that kind of thing where, some people, like, you can't cloak yourself from some people.
Right.
So they see exactly what you're doing, and you're just kind of going, oh, now what do I do? Because this one person, so now I got to make them seem like they're crazy.
Right.
And all of that stuff is drawing from, this knowledge that we have. It's not just coming out of nowhere.
Right.
Like there's nothing really truly original out there.
No.
It's just how much is being revealed and little spoon-fed bites so that we all do this adjustment.
Yep.
So that when it does happen, it is a little bit familiar. The other interesting encounter that we had recently was we did a glamping event here at the Treehouse back in early November, I think it was.
Yeah.
And when we did that, we were all out by the bonfire and just enjoying each other's company and chatting, and somebody suggested that we do Stephen Greer's CE5 protocol.
Yep.
And so we did. I guess Stephen Greer, if you wanted to look this up, he has some meditations that they use when they go out in person and do their protocols. Yep. And so he walks you through.
Well, you can download the app. You can buy the app.
Well, explain, just in case people don't know, explain who Stephen Greer is and what the protocols were.
So Dr. Stephen Greer was an emergency room physician. And I don't know, over 30 years ago, he got interested, I don't know his backstory, on UFOs. And so he's probably one of the primary figures in this movement of getting the government to disclose all of these secret space programs and things that are going on, where money is being funneled and Congress doesn't know about it, and all of these projects and things.
Yes.
And so in that, though, he understands this idea of the conscious connection with them, the spiritual aspect. So he advocates us coming at it from a heart-centered place, not because we want to have weaponization of these things that the ETs might have left behind, or trying to figure it out so we can be ahead of another country or any of that. So he wants it to be out in the open so that we can come together from a heart-centered place and not be afraid of our galactic brothers and sisters. So he teaches people how to do that heart-centered connection. So the meditations that he does when he goes out in the desert with people or whatever, he's vectoring them in. Everybody's kind of vectoring them into the earth. You visualize the earth, then you visualize like North America, then you visualize the United States, then you visualize the state of South Carolina or wherever it is that you are, and you keep vectoring, sending that out there for those.
I think you even start further out. It's like
for those beings, maybe in the Milky Way,
universe, galaxy, Milky, down all the way down. Yeah.
But before you vector them in, he goes through this meditation where you're getting into your heart space and coming at it from a neutral, heart-centered space, because if you're in it for any other reason, they're not going to show up, because it's not about the ego or anything like that. So at any rate, he calls it a CE5 because CE4 is, what was the Richard Dreyfuss movie? Close Encounters, that's what it is, Close Encounters of the third kind, and then there was the fourth kind, and the fifth kind is actual physical contact, I guess, right? So he calls it CE5. So at any rate, we did that out here by the fire, and we were just taking some random pictures because we weren't seeing, it got clouded over right at the time we were going to do it.
Right at the time of the meditation, and then as soon as the meditation wrapped up, the skies opened up again.
Yeah, and so we didn't see anything necessarily with our eyes that looked abnormal, but we were taking some digital photography.
Long exposure night photography with the iPhone, and
And at the time that we were snapping those pictures, we weren't seeing anything, but we were just taking random shots of the sky. Well, once that, what did you call it? What's the word when it?
When it renders.
When it renders?
Yeah, digitally renders.
There was this white line that looked like a upside down P in one picture, and then there was this white line that was kind of squiggly but straight down in my picture that I took. And so we knew that it was something that had shown up. So we asked in channeling about it, and they basically said it was a light language signature of the energy of those beings that were showing up for us. And
that it was encoding itself in the
at the point of the rendering.
Right. As far as it basically like inputting its code into the code of the picture so that it wasn't going to be present when it's being taken.
Right.
But as the pixels and all of the, like all the code that creates the picture, that's where it's infused. And so once it pulls up and you're looking at it, it's embedded into it. So
Now here's the cool, I'm sorry, one more thing and then I want you to jump in. But the cool thing was they said with the one that had the straight line in it, they said that you all, when you did the meditation and set out the intention, you opened a portal, and that was the portal closing up. You were seeing the zippering up of the portal. I was like, holy cow, right?
Yeah.
So do know that even if you call them in and you don't see anything with your physical eyes, know that they are there with you and try to sense into that with your body. That's the best.
And the interesting thing was, so the primary direction we were facing was west. So south and north would have been, obviously left and right of us. Well, as I'm taking pictures, and all these pictures that we captured stuff on were in the southerly facing direction, but as I would turn the camera to the north facing direction, it would go out of focus and I could not focus it.
Okay, that's weird.
Right. Nothing, even straight ahead or to the north, it would not focus. Anything to the south, it would lock on and focus. And,
Did we figure out why?
Well, what I'm guessing is that's where the convergence of all that energy was. And so it was, it was holding that space for us to take pictures, and just, we happened to catch those couple of pictures. But you could tell that energy-wise, that was the more, for me at least, I could sense there was more energy facing south than there was facing west, due west or north. So it was, it was quite interesting. So
I didn't mean to interrupt. So what were you gonna say?
Because I was interrupting.
and I'll put those pictures up as we're talking about them, so you guys can take a look at them.
No, I was just thinking, it just blows my mind that you're sitting there talking about it, and I understand, like, it makes so much sense to me. And I had this realization the other day where I was looking around my office space. Maybe I'd walked out thinking, I really like this, and walked back in and really took a look at it. And I was just like, I remember growing up and you would meet these or hear about these very organic people, hippie like that were into, the incense and feeling love and all this kind of stuff. And everyone would just be like, yeah, kind of, you're definitely outside the whatever. And I would sit there and think, that is so far out of my realm of being like, it would be such a personality change for me to suddenly jump into that. And here I am
here you are.
in this room. And the thing is, I am still me. I am not dressed like they dress.
Right.
And yet all of this makes sense. The importance of, what incense that I might, have in my diffuser versus, what kind of music I want to listen to before I do different tasks and stuff. And the meditating and having these conversations, like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I just step back from the conversation going,
I am that.
Yeah, this is so freaking weird because all of it makes sense. And yet I recall being on the other side of that glass wall or whatever.
Yeah.
And just going, what are you people talking about? Like I didn't have the file system in place or the structure, the shelving to put these bits of information on. And now it's just as normal and right as rain. And
Exactly.
Like it's just weird. So how much weirder are we going, how much more are we going to skew into this alter whatever, and we're all going to just go, yeah, it makes sense that we can hold water as air in our hand or whatever it is, or like I don't know.
I think it's all possible, and it is just that you can look at it like the generation that was in the 70s that experienced all of that. They were the ones that kind of opened the energetic doorway and left it open for us.
Pandora's box.
Right. They kicked it open, and they were like, okay, well, there isn't much we can do about it now and do with it right at this point, but it's purposeful that it's open. And now here, come to this point, well, now we're holding normal jobs, but yet we're deeply immersed in it, like many of them that were, but we're more in the normalcy of life.
We're breaking out of the stereotype.
Right. We're not breaking away from normal society and becoming, going to an enclave or whatever. We're integrating ourselves into the normalcy of life, but with all of this knowledge, which then allows others to feel comfortable to break out of their cycle and explore more and more. And what I think about is, okay, that went from the 70s to this time frame, how many years that is. Well, think about how many years into the future that cycle is, that somebody will be sitting at a table having the same conversation going, look at back in the 2000s when they really took
they opened the door for us.
Right.
Like
and the cycle keeps going, right? Because, whatever, 40 years, however long that's been, I can't do the math, but in 40 years, hell, we may be, whoever's sitting at this table in 40 years, there might be a Galactic sitting right here, and we're all having a kumbaya, right? So it's just
amazing how much we've grown in, because there's just periods of time where things just change so slowly because of all of the experiences we needed to have as humans on this planet, and then it just goes rapid, and the pace is not. I was about to say it's not sustainable. You can't have this amount of change happening on a monthly basis, but right now we are having our heads are kind of spinning from and I would say it really started around June, where things just started getting weird. Just reality. Believe this, even though you're seeing this. And then things happening that should be jaw dropping, but no, they're yesterday's news because now we're dealing with this. And it's just.
But
and we can't onboard so many of those things. That's what we're talking about. So if somebody's having UFO conferences up in Congress, it's like we just can't onboard anything else. We're overwhelmed.
And yet there's more to come.
Lots more.
And it is interesting because if I were to go back, 2015 is the demarc in time where we started awakening or reawakening, whatever you want to call it. But if I look back back beyond 2015, it's like, what in the world did I don't even, like that whole section of my life is like, I mean,
Yeah.
I get the peaks and the crests of, of certain things, but I'm like, what did I do in that life?
It's like a whole other life.
right. And
Yes,
now, and like you said,
literally.
everything is so much, it's moving so rapidly from 2015 to here. We're sitting in 2024, getting ready for 2025. I'm like, where in the world did that time period go? I mean, and I can tell you all the exciting things and all the learning and all of the exploring and all the stuff that has taken place in that short amount of time, but yet it feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
And yet, it's a lot. It could fill a novel. It's,
But when I look at my younger self and I think about myself in grade school doing book reports on Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot and UFOs and any other kind of mystery like that, it just set the foundation for what I would be doing 50 years later. And I've always been fascinated by those things.
yeah, I have to admit the same thing. I've just always seen time and space as, like I had this imagination where when we would do road trips, where I would be on a horse riding next to the car. Okay, first off, horses can't go that fast. But again, define, what's possible.
Your winged horse could.
Yeah, well, no, but this was a regular horse. And I guess what the point that I'm making is like the way I could see it, like the horse is galloping along the road. And then, how there'd be like a road that would, like there'd be a ditch.
Yeah.
And then there'd be a road that would come out, for a car to access to get over it. But
Frontage
on the
road.
horse, we would jump that. And then we would gallop more, and it was all believable. It was soothing. It made sense to me. And yet it was not concrete in this reality at all because the size of the horse, me, everything, and we'd be going up these narrow mountain roads and I could still picture and see it. And it's like my imagination allowed me to hold this thing out of time and space that made complete sense to me.
Yeah.
And I, like I'm valuing those experiences as a kid where I could, go beyond.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like as a kid, we all probably did this as a kid. I don't know, maybe some of you did, maybe some of you didn't, but like you've got the sidewalk and they're segmented, right? Little squares, each, every so many feet there's a cut, and every so many feet there's a cut. Well, I remember like running and jumping to see how many of those squares I could jump. But it was like, as soon as I jumped, it was like to me, it felt like I wasn't connected to the planet. It was like I could go 10 of those blocks. And then, even though I didn't, I mean,
Yeah.
Like you're floating.
but that,
over.
for
But
that
that made
moment,
sense.
right? That whole displacement of, is that a word? Of
Displacing
displacing
displacing of
spatial
time, right? Of time and space.
displacement. I like that.
Right. I was able to.
We make up words here.
Right.
We do.
I was able to release from the reality point of being grounded to this earth just for that short amount, but it felt extended.
It relates to those flying dreams, I think, a little
Yeah.
bit. We've all had those dreams of, we're just
Yeah.
flying around.
know how to do it.
As you were saying that, I was getting this vision of you jump and then Earth moves underneath you, and
there
you just
go.
land back because you enter the
Right.
space of no time,
Right.
and then boom.
Yeah.
The movie reel
so-
goes faster.
Since we're talking about that, and we're moving a little bit beyond, but let me just share this. I had a dream the other night, and one of our viewers, she posted something on Facebook that brought it back because I had totally forgotten it. And so I don't know if this is a prepping dream. I don't know what, but it was really intense where I just know that I was inside of a building and I was running into a stairwell and there were flames coming up and everybody's yelling and we're trying to urge everybody out of the building, but we can't quite make it down the stairwell. And I realized the floor is giving way and I'm going to fall. We're going to die. That's
Yeah.
just it. And then all of a sudden the dream reassembles itself. So I've been gifted this foreshadowing. it's jumped me like this has occurred, but we got out of the building somehow, and it's put me in this field looking back at the building with this group of people.
Yeah.
And there's a town nearby, and I'm looking at the building kind of going, oh my God, wait, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And then remembering somebody inside explaining to me, you have to tell them to run and you have to get under the water. And I'm just kind of going, run, like, and they're like, where? And I'm like, follow me. And we go running into this area where these people are having lunch.
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of like, they have no idea what's happening over there, but I know that there's some horrendous kind of explosion about to take place. And I look at them and there's a moment of, do I warn these people? You know, my responsibility, like, what is it exactly? Is it to warn these people, or with the fraction of a second I have left, do I guide my people that, have been following me into the water? And I'm like, I need to guide them into the water. And I remember that it was a really major moment of what is my responsibility here? Mm-hmm. And a bit of guilt, but then a clarity. And I'm like, we're going. And we dive, and I'm telling everybody, take a deep breath because we're going to be under for a few. And knowing that things are just going to go boom up above.
Yeah.
But it was so weird to have that, like, we're giving you this foreshadowing. Now here you have this knowledge. And I'm like, it was not a regular dream in any way, shape, or form. And I feel like, and the dream that this other person had was a foreshadowing. It was that kind of a, so how many of us are having these kind of.
I think a lot of people right now, I've been having a lot. And I would say a foreshadowing of something. I can't for sure say what, but I think a lot of people right now are, having dreams that, and if you are, please put it in the comments, but, of foreshadowing or of what, because right now I think there's so many timelines that are so tightly packed against each other that we're seeing multiple outcomes at once. They're
that's interesting.
You know what I mean? They're all kind of converging into one to where, there's going to be an ultimate outcome, but right now we're seeing all these different strands, and we're being able to, people that are connected to them, they're seeing their strand and they're being foreshadowed what could take place on that timeline.
And they might be seeing a parallel
Right.
timeline. So if you are seeing something of death and destruction and apocalyptic, don't panic, because that may have been a potential timeline, but our understanding is that's no longer a prominent one.
True. And the thing is, I think so much of it is allegorical. Like, we're going to take you, like, you don't need to go through this lifetime necessarily and be shot in the back, but you're going to have a dream of it.
Yeah.
So then
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, this was what resonated for me was it was all formed for me to reach that heightened state of what is my responsibility?
Yeah.
Who do I owe it to? And I realized the people who aren't listening, the people who aren't paying attention to what's going around in the world, they're not my responsibility. That the people who are resonating with what I'm saying, what my message is, that's my responsibility. Those are the people who I've contracted with to, and it's not that I'm doing anything earth shattering.
No, but that's.
Those are the people I'm supposed to be communicating to, guiding, facilitating, whatever. And it made it very clear to me, stop messing with this. Your audience is not the world. Your audience is these people who are waiting to be triggered into something else, into their next action.
That's a good
Right.
point. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's like Amanda Lawrence's messages. A lot of her messages, like, they're not for everybody. Like, I've thought of sending them on to people and they would just be like, this is
Right.
Greek, because it's almost Greek to me most of the time.
Yeah.
But then I get a footing. But her whole thing is, I'm not explaining what's going on. This is something that if it resonates
Right.
with you, it's introducing you into this next level of understanding and awareness. At least that's how I take it.
And it's even more than that, though. It's not our responsibility to convince anybody of anything or to help them get it or awaken. Sometimes they're not supposed to awaken in this lifetime. They didn't contract that for themselves. And so when you free yourself of that responsibility and just let people live their perfect life, because it's perfect for them, whatever happens.
Yeah.
The people on the shore in your dream, that was their perfect contract. That's what
They were
they
eating lunch.
They were having lunch.
So they were enjoying
They were out
themselves.
to lunch.
That's right. That's right. They were out
What
to lunch.
another metaphor, another layer of
yeah,
metaphor.
that's kind of interesting to put it that way. But Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, this whole thing with marketing where you're supposed to find your avatar and all that kind of stuff, there's a deeper spiritual aspect to that of, speak to the people who are there to receive your message,
Right.
not to everybody else. It's just,
I did want to mention one other thing. You know, Matt Kahn, I don't listen to very often at all. I think he's legit. And if you resonate, that's awesome. He's very heart-centered, and I like that about him. And
he's almost too heart-centered for me at times, but he's good.
Yeah,
His
so it's
stuff
not
is
that I
really
don't
helping.
resonate with him. I just don't care to watch all of his stuff. But for whatever reason, he and his wife posted something back in, I think it was right around mid-November. And it was a 30-minute session about what was going to be happening in the next 6 weeks of 2024, all of the rest of November and all of December. But that prediction notwithstanding, what he said in there that struck me, again, to the theme of this particular podcast, I've never heard him, in the few times that I have heard him, ever talk about galactics or extraterrestrials or anything like that. It's always just about knowing yourself and being in that heart-centered space and reacting with people with love and all that.
Does Joy talk about that?
I've
never heard
anything
of her.
about
Yeah,
her.
I don't know anything about her either.
She's a lovely person too, and I like
yeah.
the way she speaks. She has a good audio voice.
Yep.
But in that 30-minute session that they did, he must have said the origin story, which is the name of our book, 3, 4, 5 times in reference to that humanity is about to uncover its origin. Humanity is going to learn its origin story. He said it in that way.
Wow.
Well, one of our
the
viewers got confused by that. She actually asked me about it.
Oh, really?
And I said, no, he doesn't know about the book.
I know, right? But I want him to know about the book now. If any of you guys have a
Yeah.
connection with Matt Kahn, share this video or send him a copy of the origin story or get him in touch with us. Because I felt that was so significant,
weird?
because that's what the origin story is about. It's about finding our place within the galactic family. And that's what he was communicating, which I thought, maybe that's why I was drawn to that particular video of his, because I'm typically not drawn to his
never
stuff.
talks about.
No.
Yeah, that was really, really
So this is
cool.
why I'm saying so many random people
Yeah.
who don't normally have a galactic background or understanding or interest are all of a sudden.
Yeah, or they just don't normally share that. Like
Right.
it's just.
Right. It was so interesting. Oh my gosh. So yeah, go back and listen to that. And then I think you had one more story you were going to tell about a Reiki session or something.
Oh, yeah. So one of my clients was talking about having a Reiki session and how this person who she goes, yeah, I think I've got a message for you, just out of the blue. And I love hearing the stories with Reiki people because, they're thinking, they get into it like, I'm just going to learn how to work with energy.
We're just going to do some Reiki here.
Yeah. And like
Just
you
Reiki.
guys and everyone else, like it goes to a whole next level.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yeah.
so she said, I want to tell you about your galactic origin, I guess is how she said it. And she said that, he is like us, that the thing affecting him or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it was Sirius.
Oh.
Okay. So Syrian. And he's like, okay, cool. Like he didn't know what to do with it then. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, now you're delivering this information
Yeah.
to me. Let me explain a little bit further that there's two, from what I've learned from y'all, and it makes sense in my practicality that like, I've always felt like the Pleiades that was home.
Right.
I would look up at it and just be like homesick and going, what is it? You can barely see them, but that cluster there is like home. And so I've always felt a strong connection. And then you guys are like, yeah, I think you said my source
Your
or
primary
primary.
alignment.
Okay. His primary was Pleiadian. And then originally my secondary
Your source cluster.
source cluster. Okay. Was
It's kind of a secondary, yeah.
Yeah.
okay, is not Sirius, but what's the other one that's common?
Lyran.
And then recently we checked again, and now it's moved to Orion. And they're specifically focused. Each of those groups are focused on, they have strengths in different areas that help assist humanity.
Right.
So it made sense that it would shift into this more active role with the Orions. But so I wanted y'all to clarify, because I was trying to say to him again what the difference, like, I said, you do understand that it's not like we come to earth and all we are is ever this human soul.
Right.
That we've experienced, our souls have existed for a very long time. And, we've gone, okay, I want to have this experience. I don't know what would cause us to go, okay, I want to know what it's like to be, in the Orion experience or whatever. But that so like, is it that it's our home base, or that which we've experienced the most of, or where we first originated
Right.
when we became that spark of life, or a consciousness, spark of individuated consciousness, I guess is a better way to
And
put
so,
it.
there are a lot of schools of thought about that out there about, well, if you're sensing that you're this, it's because you've had more lives in that star system, or that was your most recent one, or your original one, or something like that. And our understanding, from our perspective, from the origin story, is not that there is an original one. So when they say source cluster, it's a little bit misleading. What they really mean is that's the other strand of your DNA. Your primary alignment is one strand of your DNA. The source cluster is your other, because they're all source clusters. There's the Pleiadian source cluster and the Orion source cluster. They're all source clusters because they came from source. They were 12 divided out that were source clusters. They were still source. Then they started mingling their energy and hybridizing, basically.
Okay.
By the time, because there was a lot that went on in the bazillions of years before humanity ever came into existence, because humans were the human project. So by the time all of those minglings of energies and hybridization made it down into the human project, humanity was a combo of all 12 of them. They wanted to create humans with aspects of all 12. And so that was the project. And so to say that your source or your soul comes from any one of them is not accurate.
Okay,
You're a combo of all
Right.
12. You have 12 strands of energetic DNA. It's just that there are 2 that are lit up that you choose prior to your incarnation as part of your contract for the strengths or the mission or whatever it is that you agreed with. And occasionally, like they will change throughout your lifetime. You can't have all 12 DNA strands active at the same time, or you would not need to be here.
Changing doesn't just, I mean, it typically doesn't just happen. It's usually because you're going through a significant upgrade
you've
yourself.
Changed your trajectory, or you've evolved such that you need a different now.
Your awareness has come online to a greater extent. I mean,
and this will serve you better, for what you're
and
here to do.
you've contracted with that. It's just waiting for that moment of awakening or that moment of transition to take place. As far as going from one understanding of maybe an energetic concept to another that really impacts your life. Well, then now that you're kind of leveled up at that point, the primary and the source that you were connected to may not do an adequate job of supporting you in that. So your primary.
Now you're on a different mission.
And more than likely, your primary is the one that's going to change. Your source cluster, I don't know if the source cluster changes that often.
I don't recall which one.
But a lot of times the primary will change because that's the one that interacts with you from a day-to-day basis.
But for an example, when we did our 12-week book study, the first time in early 2024, we channeled right off the bat who everyone in the group's primary and source cluster were for them. And by the end, their own trajectory had changed such that some of them had changed.
Yeah, so that's the Pleiadian stayed constant for me, but the secondary.
So the source cluster changed.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's for those major transition points. Those are those. The source cluster is the one that's going to really be there when you're going through a major struggle, a major change, and you overcome it, or you come into some awareness that's really changing that struggle point, or it basically it's changing a complete concept of how you're to go about things. Then to support you in that, your cluster is going to change as well. So
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's fascinating.
Just know this origin story thing. Like, you learn so much about your ancestral, like it's that deep down aspect of you, and you start to begin to see yourself through each of these different aspects of beings, the 12 different, and than to realize, okay, like this is primary, this is secondary or source or whatever. Like you can see, like the Pleiadian thing totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about them, I'm just like, oh my God, this is who I am. You know, so it feels very prominent.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like saying, well, I'm an Aries, you know,
Right.
that's the other aspect. I mean, that gives me the flavor or the challenges or the whatever.
Yes, it's a construct.
Yeah,
It's a
and-
construct.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with, you know, this is kind of a source point to give you aspect of who you are with all of this other stuff. Like I just find it infinitely fascinating. So you're not just
Yeah,
one
right.
thing or another. It's not like you're just born into the world, as we've used the name Joe several times. So I'm going to stick with that. You're not just born as Joe and you become a carpenter and there you
right.
go. You know, it's like you're Joe who was born on a certain date to certain parents because you chose
At a certain
that.
time.
Yeah, and
Right.
that certain date, certain time, you know, gives you all of those other aspects beyond your mission, you know, that you've got with your parents. Plus, then you've got the source.
Your cluster and all that
that's
stuff,
the
yeah.
very beingness of it just like
Isn't it fascinating?
we're so much more complex. So like stop playing it small. Like we're pretty damn amazing.
Yeah.
We are. Humans are. And this was fun. That's a beautiful place to end. I love that. By the time this airs in January, we will have started our. No, we will have
Yeah.
started our 12-week
Yeah.
course already. So you may have.
So you're either
missed-
in or you aren't.
You may have missed that. However, we are going to be putting an online course relative to the information from the origin story, and that will come out probably February or March. So be on the lookout for that if you want to take an asynchronous online course to study on your own.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, I always love talking about the Galactic. So this was really fun for me. I hope that you guys are having an amazing 2025 already. And if you need anything, please reach out. Please leave some comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, until next time, hit that thumbs up button, share away, notification bell, all the jazz, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.